supply chainers, wherever you are in the world. This is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey with you today. Are you ready? Let's talk supply chain.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thoughts and Coffee. My name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey, the founder and host of Let's Talk Supply Chain, the Blended podcast, and founder of the Blended Pledge. I am coming at you live. I mean, it kind of looks like I'm in my studio, but you can see a little bit here. I am coming at you live from Vegas because I am here on the ground at Manifest, and it kind of got started yesterday. There was a kickoff party last night. I'm going to be on the floor and recording some podcast episodes today. So super excited to see everybody. If you're here, come say hi. I would love to see you. And today we've got an episode with my trade bestie, Audrey Ross, if I could get her name right. I mean, listen, guys, it's 7 a.m. here Pacific time. So I'm still trying to get my head around it. Plus, I don't have coffee this morning. I have sparkling water in a wine glass. So excuse me, but I did not have time to go get coffee this morning. All right. So we can't do this show without our show sponsor, which is the Secret Society of Supply Chain.com. Go and check it out. We've got membership groups for everybody in supply chain, from supply chainers to women in supply chain to marketing professionals in supply chain. So head over to Secret Society of Supply Chain.com. I wonder how many times, I think I should drink every time I say the word supply chain. Maybe we should do that, and you guys should take a sip of coffee. All right, so let's talk about what is coming up for Let's Talk Supply Chain. I should take a sip. Anyways, we've got a brand new episode of TPM TV hosted by Eric Johnson coming up on Friday at, well, it says 7 a.m. Pacific time, but it is 10 a.m. Eastern time. And he's going to be talking about the future of smart containers, what it means for supply chains, what it means for you, what that looks like. In the past, over the last couple of years, I've actually spoken to a lot of companies doing smart containers, and they look very differently. I think I was talking to one just a year or so ago about foldable containers, which I was very intrigued with, and I didn't get to talk to them enough. So head over there, click the attend button. Even if you can't attend live, we'll make sure to send you the link. Then Wednesday, February 19th at 10 a.m. Eastern, Christine Barnhart is going live for Supply Chain Unfiltered with Matt Steiner, the VP Head of Supply Chain and Distribution and E-commerce at L'Oreal. Now, they're going to be talking about agility, digitalization, external manufacturing, and so much more. So again, click that attend button and we will send you that live. And then that same day, looks like 1 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to be going live with Mark from Softion. And we're going to be talking about from chaos to coordination, how to use warehouse automation to achieve long-term success. Now, this kind of goes with some of the themes that we're going to be talking about today, because we're going to be talking about AI agents. We're also going to be talking about AI governance. And this kind of goes into the conversation that I'm going to be having just in the matter of a week with Mark from Softion. So click the attend button, join us live. If you can't join us live, we will send you the link to that recording. Now, I've been having a little bit of fun lately, and I wanted to show you what I have been up to. So on Sunday, we actually hosted our first Secret Society of Supply Chain in-person event here at Manifest. You can see Christine Barnhart, Katie Date. We were having a ton of fun with the photo booth that we had there. Now, this event was sponsored by Linksys. We had a great turnout and a lot of fun. And then last week, I was honored at Sutton Strack. She is a Real Housewife of Beverly Hills. Her circular fashion event in New York City. Audrey joined me along with a bunch of other special people in my life to honor that. This is Sutton with her daughter. This is me accepting the honor and the award with everything in my hands, which I thought was a lot of fun. And then congratulations to Rachel as well. If you're not following her, Circular Girl on Instagram as well, she's got some really, really great content. And last but not least, events, in-person events. So we're here at Manifest. TPM 25 happens March 2nd through 5th in Long Beach, California. And then Home Delivery World is happening May 21st through the 22nd as well. And hopefully we will see you there. Well, that was a lot to get through. And now it's time to bring up Audrey. Hello, how are you?
Hi. Hello from Toronto. It's not Vegas, but it's still nice.
Can I tell you, it was all these people who are in Vegas that come from warm climates are like, it's so cold here. Yesterday, I walked to my hair appointment in a t-shirt,
Yeah.
drinking an iced,
Iced.
and I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so Toronto right now because it's been so cold that I guess I'm so used to it.
What is it for Americans right now? It's probably been what, 30 or 32 degrees for us consistently. So Fahrenheit, 30 or 32 degrees Fahrenheit consistently for the last, and it's going to be like that when you get home, FYI.
Oh, it
So that's
is?
like -7 on average, -7 C for those of us in Celsius. Yeah, it's going to be like that when you get home. Weeks.
I've
Like
been
I look
telling
at the 14 day and it's like -8, high of -8, high of -8. You're like, anytime.
I've been telling people that I haven't seen pavement since December.
Oh my gosh, it snowed so much the other day, probably yesterday when you were flying out, and then it's gonna snow again, I think Thursday, 25 centimeters, like between Thursday
No,
and the weekend.
no,
Yeah, it was
I'm
quite awesome.
flying
Yeah.
in on Thursday.
So don't come home.
Oh,
Stay
no.
in
I was
Vegas.
already delayed 2.5 hours. Okay. Might
Yeah.
have to stay in Vegas, people. All right, we
Yeah.
digress. Okay, this is what happens when we get together. But anyways, for anybody who doesn't know you, why don't you give us an introduction?
Oh goodness, that's right. So I'm Audrey. I'm here in Toronto. I had a great time in New York, celebrating your win and joining in with the Sutton the kind of fashion event. It was really nice to catch up with people, meet some people I hadn't met before. So that was great. I'm here. What do I do? Right now it's trade compliance. We don't say tariffs anymore. It's become a bit of a hot button word. So unless you really want to talk about it, we can skip over those because they're a bit of a chaotic mess, as they usually are with this administration. I'm doing some work with the Organization for Women in International Trade, Toronto. So that's probably what's listed here as my bio. It's a great group that focuses on the advancement of women in trade. So it's men and women supporting women's careers in trade policy as entrepreneurs, as trade practitioners like I am, who deal with customs compliance and logistics and things like that. So we're gearing up for some events this season. And yeah, I just found out yesterday that we're going to have a great event with a very kind of high profile special guest next month. So yeah,
Oh,
exciting. Yeah.
you fancy.
Yeah.
Fancy and bougie. Well, you're going to
I
give
know.
us an update in a
Okay.
minute, which I'm sure there's a lot to talk about. I think, is it Lunar New Year now?
It's just finishing. It's just wrapping up.
Just finishing. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
everything
So tomorrow I think is Lantern Festival, or next Wednesday. And that kind of closes it off.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Well, before we get to the market update, let's get to the poll. And I want to let everybody know who is listening. Put an emoji of how you're feeling today. I want to know how you're feeling. Let us know where you're tuning in from. I know that most of supply chain, and I'm going to sip. Did you hear that? Every time I say supply chain, I'm going to sip my sparkling water. It's going to happen every 2 seconds. Anyways, I think most people in supply chain are probably here on the ground in Vegas at Manifest, because I think there's like 6,000 people or something like that. Something crazy.
But I have a lot of FOMO right now, Sarah. Don't worry.
If you are watching, please let us know in the comments where you're watching from, because we would love to hear from you. Now let's get to our poll of the week. So question, and I can't read that. Okay, I need glasses. The poll of the week: are return policies helpful or harmful to supply chains? Well, we had almost 100 votes on this one, and we're tied at 35% to boost customer loyalty or balance both. 19% said need rethinking, 12% said strain operations. So this is really interesting, because I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday who has been in the return space for quite a while. And he was saying that he doesn't do APIs, and he handles returns for one of the biggest retailers, and he's doing it for $2 a package, all in.
Wow.
Which I think is amazing. I mean, if we can all do that, use technology, get technology right, I think it would be fine. But I think returns do cost a lot of money. So what do you think? What do you think about this? Did you vote? Which one did you vote?
I did vote. I went with need rethinking. I think from the perspective of a customer being able to access, and try on product without having to go to a brick and mortar store. has been invaluable for a lot of people for a lot of reasons over the past, sort of, I don't know, 10 years since we started online shopping. I do think there's a lot of waste, and kind of, um, around that process that can be retuned. So I think it's tough because I think the access that you get from, if you're a customer who can't always get to the brick and mortar store, or your favorite store doesn't exist in the country that you live in, then it's so accessible. But I do think like the cost of those, the courier, the emissions, the process. What if something happens to it? When you're trying it on, you get deodorant on it, and then they can't resell it, and then like then there's dry cleaning costs, and so it just sort of to me stacks up with a lot of activities as well. So people who voted for strain, it's a lot of extra activities that you have to kind of cope with, not necessarily, locally or kind of out of your range. So it's a tough topic.
Well, and especially in fashion, like you're talking a
Oh,
lot about fashion, and there's a ton of returns in fashion.
yeah.
One of the reasons why I was at that event last week,
Hmm.
because Sutton has Sutton Brands, her line of clothing, where she actually recycles clothing so that they don't end up in the waste, right? And she repurposes a lot of that clothing and sells them really quickly. And so she's really a pioneer. I mean, she was honoring me, but
Yeah.
she's really one of the
No,
pioneers
she's
of
yeah,
this.
in the space. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really interesting what she's doing. And I'm hoping that we can put more of a spotlight on that. We're going to have an episode coming out with her in, I don't know, just a few weeks. We have
Couple
to
weeks, yeah.
finish a few things. But, anyways, it's interesting. I mean, returns is hard, right? It's costly. There's, like you said, there's a lot of things to consider. So, I don't know if it's necessarily, I mean, I guess it can be harmful, but it can be done well and it can be done properly, and I just
Mhm.
don't think anybody's necessarily mastered it quite yet for
Yeah.
all of the different buckets that you mentioned. All
Yeah.
right, let's do a market update. So what's happening?
Yeah.
What should people know about? I mean, you mentioned tariffs. I mean, we avoided
Yeah.
that for now.
Yeah. Well, we got steel. I think we did. I don't know. I went to bed maybe before he changed his mind. But we had 25% steel and aluminum tariffs back on the table, which in 2018 the Canadians had applied retaliatory tariffs back when that happened. So we'll see if that happens this week. The Canadian government already has a short list on their
Mhm.
tariffs, so they have a kind of a week 1 and a week 4 list, like 100 billion and 155 billion. So there's a lot of back and forth. So if you're in this space, like, stay hydrated, stay rested. Um, because it's tough because like I'm trying to field questions from my team as well. Like, what if I send this package to a customer? What if it's really important? I can't, we don't have time for it to get stuck. And, so like this is gonna be my day to day for the next 4 years or until I quit. Um, just fatigue out. I don't know. So, and then the other thing that is going on, the Panama Canal seems to be intact, and we don't see the same conditions as we did last year with the drought. There's been definitely some infrastructure attention on that, so that's moving smoothly. So that shortcut for global trade is going. We've got labor issues seem to be resolved. We see some little flare ups. We had a couple weeks ago the Canadian rail electricians were kind of having a little conversation, but nothing on the table this year. I'm not sure if it was Peter Churchwell or someone else at the Journal of Commerce who said, who'd positioned like 2024 was going to be the year of labor disputes. So I think we're mainly through that, and now we're into 2025, and things are kind of clicking along at least for the next year or two till we go back into these negotiations. And then the Red Sea crisis. The sort of Houthi position, and most of you, if you're not following Lars Jensen already, that's where I get most of my insights, is tentative. So there's a sense there's been a ceasefire situation. There's been some negotiations between the Israelis and the Palestinians. So that has led to this sort of pause in kind of activities. It's meant that the Houthis, who are kind of the main driver of disrupting the Red Sea area, have put a pause on their kind of activities as well. And it has commercial liners kind of considering if this stays, if this pause is maintained, if the ceasefire is maintained, if this crisis is sort of seen some light at the end of the tunnel, then can we go back to safely shipping through the Suez Canal? So we're at the point of it's still new and tentative, and it might not be a lasting situation. So everyone's really like, it's been a real challenge for businesses shipping anything from Asia into Europe or back the other way. Just really put a stall on that trade, and especially in light of the tariffs that we're seeing in other regions and the geopolitical sensitivities we're seeing in other regions, it's having any, trying to resolve any sort of disruption is the goal. So crossing our fingers that will keep on a positive track, and we can start to see those shipments back through the Suez Canal, which will lead, of course, to a big disruption for about 3 weeks as we have double the vessels. You have vessels cutting across, and vessels will be en route already, and they'll all just pile up in Hamburg, Rotterdam, Antwerp, Le Havre, everywhere. So we'll have like 3 weeks to pile up, and everybody will hate it, and it'll be the worst. But then after that, it should get better. So,
well, a big shout out to Lars.
He's so insightful. Yeah,
he came to our Secret Society of Supply Chain party on Sunday night. I actually met him as I was coming out the elevator. I was like, "Come and join us." So he came, and that was a lot of fun. All right, let's get to our articles, because we've got 3 pretty cool articles that we want to get to. 2 of which happen to be about AI. Surprise! Anyways. So the guest that was supposed to be here today, Rose, to talk a little bit about AI, she actually wrote this particular article for the Digital Journal. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it to the show today, but you can really understand once you read this particular article what she's talking about. Now, she's saying that 2025 is the year of AI agents. What does that mean? Well, AI agents are digital workers, and Gartner is predicting that by 2028, 33% of businesses will deploy AI agents. I mean, 2028, is still, about 3 years away. 33% is not a huge number, but there's a variety of ways that AI agents are coming into businesses and sort of helping to not take over, but take over some of the decisioning, the execution, the planning, etc. So I'm going to pause there. There's a few other things I want to mention, but I want to get your take on this particular article. What did you think?
No, I think it's key, and I think I really admire Rose for the work that she's doing, because she's really paying attention and following the thread that AI can be ethical, right? We don't hear a lot of ethics in this world, but I think her driving force is that AI can be ethical, that it's a tool that we can use, and it's not meant to exploit the current workforce, and it's not meant to like cut jobs and like, oh, we're just gonna fire everybody and bring in robots. And so her positioning in this is really clear on what the current skill set is for AI, what level we're at with AI, where she thinks it's going to. And I think it's interesting because companies are starting to hire. I'm seeing positions for like AI coordinator or, AI integration manager. So you're starting to see that as a job. Like from 2024, I didn't see it as a job. 2025, now it's a job. So it's coming in very quickly.
So the digital workers, or the different options, I think, for the AI agents, she actually goes through what they do and what they mean to you. So multimodal models, which I thought was interesting, reasoning capabilities in the AI agent. So they're saying that planning, executing, and course correction can be done by AI agents without any human interaction. Which is very interesting. There's an increased control window, deep learning, and there was a couple of quotes. Actually, let me go back to this, because there was a couple of quotes by Bill Gates and Sam Altman about AI, which I thought was interesting, and I just wanted to share it. So Sam Altman says, "We believe that in 2025, we may see the first AI agents join the workforce and materially change the output of companies. And Bill Gates said agents are not only going to change how everyone interacts with computers, they're also going to upend the software industry, bringing about the biggest revolution in computing since we went from typing commands to tapping on icons. And so that's a really big deal. And so, we always talk about not going to chase the shining object. Well, I don't think it's the buzzword anymore. I think it's going to be adopted. I think we have to be a little bit careful. I had Amber Sally from Gaines on the show, or on the podcast. If you didn't go and listen to it, go and listen to it, because she talks about how we need to make sure that we keep human bias out of the data and the data outcomes. And so if you're talking about not having human interaction with these reasoning capabilities, that could help eliminate some of those bias, but that outcome then has to go to a human, and the human then has to decide what to do with it, right? If it makes them feel uncomfortable or any sort of feelings, they may or may not use it. We want to make sure that they do. So anyways, really great article. Go and check that out by Rose. We will have her back on the show another day. Let's get to our next article. So this one is about Gen Zers going back to the mall. Well, you might be wondering, what does this have to do with supply chain? Well, it has everything to do with supply chain. It goes back to everybody sort of trying to figure out, sort of that omni-channel retail, that omni-channel supply chain. Where do we need our inventory? Now it's talking about how Gen Zers, and Amber's here. She's in the audience. Okay, we gave you a shout out for your episode. I love it. I talk about it all the time. Thanks for joining us, Amber. So going back to this article, so Gen Zers want experience. They want to go to the mall. They want Instagrammable moments. They want items quicker, and they want time with their friends. Honestly, I like the mall just so I can try some stuff on, but I'm like late millennial, so like I still like to go to the mall. What did you think of this particular article? How does it make you think about your supply chain?
I mean, I think it's interesting. I think socially, I think it'll be interesting to have people back in physical spaces, and teenagers and 20-year-olds don't have a lot of kind of third spaces outside of their home and their work, or their school. So, obviously socially that's a benefit. I think for the supply chain, it's around making sure your distribution channels are, up to snuff. And then again, going back to the returns conversation that we've had earlier, the moving the goods around. Like one of the things when I was working at Williams-Sonoma back in the day was they did offer, in the US, they offered a lot of pickups. You could move, if the pan or pot wasn't available at one store, you could move it to another one for pickup. And we couldn't so much do that in Canada. And so those customer service things that make you stand out rely on that sort of infrastructure internally on how you're moving your product around, how you're coping with returns to your distributors, how your back room isn't getting piled up with stock to be returned. So it's kind of harkening back to understanding that distribution as opposed to the last mile that goes direct to a customer's door, which is a different interaction.
Well, and they want the inventory on hand. They want items quicker. They want it in stores. And it's interesting. 3 things that they mentioned in this article is that Gen Zers, and there's percentages on this, I could probably check the percentages, but they are talking about, was it said 39% of Gen Zers are tired of hearing about Amazon. 60% believe Amazon is too powerful, and 50% try to actively avoid Amazon. Mm-hmm. Which is really interesting. And a lot of times with supply chain, we use the Amazon model when we're thinking about last mile delivery and how do we get it to the consumer faster? Well, in this case, we could be using malls.
Yeah.
Right?
More direct. It's right there. But it does lead to the expectation that you have the stock on hand, which can be misaligned with the reality.
And there's all capital intensive too.
Yeah. Because like I said, it could be at another location, and it's the willingness of that store. Is your customer service response, just go to this other mall and pick it up? Or is it, we'll get it to you by, in 2 days, it'll be here for you to pick it up. So
Nobody
Yeah.
wants to hear that. I've had that
Nobody wants to hear that.
the last couple of months. I'm like, no, it's okay. I'll just buy it online.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, let's get to our last article. And this is
Yeah.
about AI again, but
Yeah.
this is about AI governance. So you
Governance.
talked about how in Rose's article, she talks about being responsible around AI agents. This particular article in Forbes talks about AI agents. It talks about them making decisions, but it also talks about how it could potentially cause harm. And they're talking about how AI governance in 2025 is going to be key, but it's really going to be a collaboration between a lot of people. So 23% trust businesses to handle AI properly. 20%, 21% is a very, very low number. And at the end of the day, it's going to take proactive corporate investment and responsible AI teams. That's why you're seeing some of those jobs pop up. Because it's going to take all of that to keep everybody responsible. Now, there is an EU AI Act that is coming out, I believe, this year, and there is 35 million euro in penalties on the table around this act. Now, it doesn't go into the act, so I don't know all the details of it. But that's a lot of money. That's a lot of penalties that companies are going to want to try to avoid. Audrey, what do you think about this?
I think it's, typical to most kinds of things that we try to standardize in the world, that some country or, and typically the EU is going to be the leader in the regulations. And then the rest of us are either going to kind of copy and follow or not follow and just do what we want. So it does mention that the US is expected to have sort of fragmented regulation. What's interesting, I love that the ISO is always like, they surprise you. They're always on top of the latest stuff. There's already an ISO certification for AI. I'm like, what?
Wow.
But there they are. So, that's the kind of thing that helps companies actually, when you're dealing as a global company or as a global business. The ISO standardization can really help you to try and manage all of these different fragmented rules. So if you have that foundational, certification from them, or at least the training, that'll help ground you when you're trying to encounter all of these different regulations that are coming through, and especially being mindful of like, well, where do I have to put the most attention? Well, the EU is going to hit me with fines, so I would definitely want to make sure if I'm operating in the EU that I'm matching to those regulations. This is going to be this is what the smartphone of our time. This is the internet of our age. So AI is certainly something that we all need to start to learn more about. You don't want to get skipped over at all by this, because it is going to change your job. For the most part, it sounds in a lot of ways it will make it better. But that does mean that, from a company perspective, you want to see some responsibility to upskilling or to what that new those new workforces will look like. And then from an individual, you want to kind of start to take on, what is coming into play? What are my options? How can I use the tools that are at hand? And a lot of them now, whether you want them or not, are embedded and popping up everywhere. Copilot, Adobe. And right now it seems kind of annoying. You're like, hi, I'm just trying to do like my Zoom phone call. I don't know what AI is going to help me when I'm just having a video call, but maybe I just need to start learning what it's going to do. So
I know. Stop thinking about it.
but also, it's like I don't know, some of us generation, they might remember that paperclip Microsoft used to have. Like, it's like that guy. You're just like, go away, let me do my work. And then you're like, wait a second, maybe it can help me do my work better.
Oh, I remember that.
I should entertain this guy. I should Clippy. I should entertain Clippy.
It bounced around, didn't he?
Yeah.
The screen?
Well, he would like pop up in Word, or like can I help you? Like with typing, no, I'm good. I think I can type myself. But then you're like, wait a second, maybe I don't want to type myself. Maybe I want to go make a painting. You can do the typing for me.
Oh man,
it's a whole thing. It's gonna be a whole thing.
I forgot about that guy. Anyways, going back to the article, we digress. See, this is what happens when we I
Yeah.
did say this at the beginning of the show.
Mm.
There is an environmental sort of like energy
Yeah.
efficient component to this, and it does talk about
Yeah.
it in the article if you want to talk about, or if you want to go and read it.
Read.
They say that providers must take the lead by designing energy efficient systems and adopting transparent carbon reporting practices as well. So there's a bunch of things that we need to know from an AI perspective, from a governance perspective, also to think about what your responsibility as an organization corporately is to not only the people in your organization, but obviously your end users, your end consumers, the world from an environment perspective. So I don't envy you because there's a lot to think about. There's a lot to do when it comes to AI governance, and especially if there's some heavy penalties coming through. So anyways, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah.
Audrey, thank you for joining me on this episode. Next week, I've got the crew over at S&P Global coming on, and we're going to be talking about what you can expect at TPM because that is coming up in just a few weeks. Well, have a great week, everyone.